All right, excellent. Finally, we're started just a few moments late. I appreciate all of you who were here in plenty of time and ready to go. And this, I hope that each one of you have his or her handouts, also with plenty of other note pages, because you are going to have quite a few notes that you need to be taking as we go along. I'm going to demonstrate quite a few things on the screen so that you'll be able to see them, of course, and that's part of the reason I'm doing it as a webinar, so that you can see. I want you to pretend this is what I look like. I did have a quick screenshot or the webcam on a little bit earlier. Some of you could see me, some of you could not see me. And what I'm thinking is that because Maestro does offer this as an option, I'm imagining that maybe sometimes when I'm answering questions, I might be able to go ahead and put the webcam on, only because it really is nice, I think, to see who's talking to you instead of having it just come out of your earpiece or your computer. As you know, all kinds of options here, many different items, top 10 productivity tips, completely free. Many of you subscribe to that. Life of Ease, we have a lot of Life of Ease members who are here today, and I always welcome all of you. The Get a Plan guides, it's another way for you to get lots and lots of productivity information. And we also have some members of the Just Whelmed group who are here. And I mean, there's never anything, we're never running out of things to do here at Emphasis on Excellence. Those of you I'm connected with on Facebook, and if you're trying to declutter, I've got a whole Facebook page where that's all we talk about is decluttering. And that's some of what we are going to be talking about today, no question. And I had some excellent questions that were sent in. Most of them I'm able to just integrate into, as we go along today, and then there will be an opportunity for people to ask questions later on. Without any problem. And then if you have more questions afterwards, please feel free to go ahead and send them to me, and I'll do what I can to try to answer them. Because the whole idea of productivity and so forth is something I've been working on for darn near 25 years. So my name is Meggin McIntosh, and my company is Emphasis on Excellence, and I'm here in Reno, Nevada, which is beautiful. If you've never been here, you should come here because it's gorgeous. It's just an absolutely fabulous place to live. Now we're going to do several polls today, and many of you are familiar with some of the other polling, software on different kinds of systems. And the way that it works on this system, I'm going to put the questions up, and I want you to just press on your keypad 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, depending on your answer. So the question is, which of these is true? My current physical filing system is mostly alphabetical, mostly categorical. I use Paper Tiger. I use some of this, some of that, kind of a mixture. And some of you may say, you mean there's a system? So just press 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and I'll be able to see your vote. And I'll just give you just another about 10 seconds. And oh my goodness. So people are voting. We have quite a few people who said, you mean there's a system? And then we have many people who are doing categorical. Only a couple of people are using alphabetical, and then we have a lot of people doing a mixture. So far, nobody who's voted has said that they're using Paper Tiger, but I really hope that that changes today. A huge reason that I do this is because people are always asking me what I use. Also, I talk to people darn near every day about how they can't find things, they don't know where things are, and yeah, gosh, if there's anything that can help you with that, then I think you need that information. I want you to think about how much your time is worth, and I want you to think about this both for yourself as well as for the people who work for you. Because when they're fiddling around and they can't find things, it wastes everybody's time, and it also wastes huge amounts of money, most of which, I mean, why would you waste money? I mean, if you've got more money than you know what to do with, there are plenty of places you could give it away to. But most people's, whether it's a nonprofit or a company or a government agency, you don't want to be wasting money. If you look at the second page of your handouts, this is a chart that you can use at some other time to just kind of take a look at, you know, I want you to think about your salary and benefits or the salary and benefits of the people who work around you. You can multiply just so that you have, you know, the numbers that you need, but I tried to put a good range in there that would be easy for you to use. Because you can see how much money you are throwing away when you're throwing away minutes or hours on finding and filing things. There are just a multitude of statistics, and this is one statistic that I've seen that at this point, Americans waste over 9 million hours every day looking for things that are lost. And we all know how that is and how frustrating it is, because there's nothing here that talks about all the energy that's lost. This is just talking about the time that's lost. For somebody who makes, say, $60,000, if they're throwing away 6 weeks a year looking for things that they know they filed or they've got them in a pile or something like that, you know, it's throwing away $8,000 a year. If you don't throw that away, give it away if you don't need it. Let's go ahead and just think about, you know, also at home this goes on, and that's no good. Let's quickly go to our second poll. And again, you're going to vote 1, 2, 3, or 4. You have 4 choices this time. You just press that on your keypad on your telephone, for those of you that are called in on the phone. Every day, how much time do you spend when you are looking for things that you know perfectly well are filed? Is it less than 5 seconds? Is it usually just a minute or so? Could it go up to 5 or 10 minutes? And do you just not even want to think about it? So 1, 2, 3, or 4. I'll give you about 10 more seconds to vote. It's always interesting to see. So it looks like the majority of you are saying number 3, that it depends, but it's often up to 5 or 10 minutes. And then others of you are split on usually a minute or so, or you're scaring yourself. Absolutely. Before I started using Paper Tiger, I was definitely a number 3 and a number 4. As I've said in more than one workshop, my husband thought that when I got organized, I was not quite as entertaining as I used to be, because I would be so upset and slamming around and looking for things. So I try to be, you know, interesting and entertaining in other ways, because apparently I'm not as funny anymore with that. What you need are great systems. And this is just one part of the system, is being able to file and find things. Because folks, let's just take a few pictures, or a look at a few pictures. Many times when I go places to do workshops on getting organized, I will ask people to send me photos of their offices. So this is just a whole range of different people's offices. And you can see we're not running out of paper yet. I don't care whether you've got things taped up, you've got shelves, you know, that you can't even close, you've got things all piled around. And this is standard. What is unusual is when somebody sends me a picture and everything is really looking good. And it's very rare, and, you know, you can think about whether your space looks great. And you're welcome to send me pictures. And I never identify anybody. Every once in a while I have people that stand in the picture, and I never use those because I figure, well, you know, but if you want to send me a picture of your office or something like that, especially if you do some before and afters. This is one of the things that one of my assistants, when I used to physically go into offices and help people get organized, and she'd always say, we found it, the food and makeup drawer, because it seems nearly everyone has a food and makeup drawer. Men usually don't have makeup, but they often have, you know, snacks and other kinds of things, so they have their own version. Now, sometimes people go, ooh, look at that nice desk. Folks, I want you to look all around. It's not just the desk, although the desk is certainly better than some of the other ones that we've seen. And if any of your offices are being shown here and you think, oh my gosh, I don't even want people to see that, then you'll like this next poll. All right, third poll is, if you visited my workspace right now, I'd be number 1. If you'd be proud, press 1. If you'd be horrified, press 2. If you'd rather that we waited a couple of hours, press 3. Number 1, proud. 2, horrified. 3, you'd rather that we waited. So, all right. Apparently we have a lot of people who would like us to wait. And so the majority of people are saying, I'd rather that you waited. We have a handful of people, though, that said, come on over. You know, I'm feeling proud. And then a good group of you would be horrified. Or horrified. That's a new word. It's kind of a good word. Here's a note that I would like you to write down, if you didn't already know this. What the research indicates is that for the average person, the average professional, 80 to 90% of what is in their file cabinets will never be accessed again. Did you get that? 80 to 90% of what you have in your file cabinet is never going to be accessed again. Some of you may think, well, gosh, no, I think it's probably only about 50%. Maybe it is. But that would tell me you could probably free up an awful lot of space. And we're not even talking about the things that are in piles and have never even made it into file cabinets. One of the things that I gave you is on page 3. Please keep this handy. I love these questions. I pulled them from a number of different places. Different people ask these in a variety of different ways. But I think that this will help you tremendously. Because the point is, there is no sense for you to be filing things that you don't even need to keep. So if you can cull your files by, say, 50%, and I'm telling you, the majority of you, it would be at least that, then you've got a whole lot less to file. In most cases, I tell people that they are never in their organizations going to need to buy file cabinets again. Now, every once in a while, somebody does. But generally, if people would get rid of the crap that should not even be in a file cabinet, because it doesn't need to be kept, then they've got plenty of room. Some of you need a new file cabinet, however. And I'm not calling any names, but some of you need new file cabinets because you've got old, crummy ones that when you pull the drawer out, it starts, you know, tipping over, and you don't want that. You do not want that at all. All right, well, let's keep going. And what I would say is, if you have a question, then you may raise your hand, and all you have to do to raise your hand is just press, let's just have people press 1 at any time during the call today if you have a question. And I'll try to keep an eye on that, and then I will come over to you and I will unmute you so that I can hear you. The way that the recording works is it does not record the questions that other people are asking. It's only recording me. So anytime somebody asks a question, I'll repeat it so that other people would be able to hear that. One of the women that I have learned the most from and I mean, just early on, she helped me so much with organizing, is Barbara Hemphill. One of her most well-known quotes is, if you don't know you have it or you can't find it, it is of no use to you. And I bet a lot of you, when you find boxes of things or you're rooting around in drawers or in cupboards or something and you think, oh, I didn't even know I had that. I want you to think, probably it's been of no use to me then. And you in some cases you may think, well, then I could probably get rid of it. Everything that we are talking about today with this system is about organizing physical items. We are not talking about organizing your hard drive, organizing your documents. We're talking about organizing physical items. And some of you wrote in questions about, what suggestions would I have for organizing your hard drive? That's really a whole different discussion, and that's not for today. So we are going to be talking about things, and it could be notebooks, boxes, art supplies, craft supplies, things in your kids' rooms, CDs, VHS tapes, all of that. Anything that is physical that you need to keep up with, that it's not just obvious how to keep up with it. I mean, you know where your glassware is. It's in the cupboard right next to your dishwasher. I'm not talking about that, but it's all the other things that we think, don't we have a file on this? Where in the world in the storage unit is my, any different item that you might have? So let's go to the fourth poll, because I want you to think about, well, what else do you have besides paper files that you need to organize? Do you have a garage or a storage unit? Do you have a lab? Do you have CDs or DVDs, craft or hobby supplies, or office supplies? And you can actually press more than one number on this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. What all do you need to file besides paper files? And I'll give everybody a moment to put in their numbers, because most people's garages could use some assistance. All I have to do is walk around my neighborhood when people have their garage door up and think, wow, folks, I can help you. I've got a system that would make a difference for you. And people's labs, good heavens, all sorts of reasons why Paper Tiger would work there. It's called Paper Tiger. It could be Lab Tiger. We have, the majority of people have office supplies that need to be organized, and then we have just other people mixed across the other ones and showing there. Let's go ahead and take a peek at how to know whether or not, or kind of what Paper Tiger is, and then I'll talk to you about how to even know whether you need it or not. So what I'm going to do is I am going to move my Paper Tiger screen over here so that you can see this. And what I'm going to do, this is one of those very interesting kinds of things that at this point I'm showing you real time how this works. And let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. So this morning I was actually using Paper Tiger like I do pretty much every single morning. And I recently bought a new printer and had, some paperwork that needed to be filed with the printer that I finally finished filling out. So I typed in the word printer. See, and nothing came up. And I thought, what? How in the world did nothing come up for printer? And then I thought, oh, well, let's see. Let me type in HP, because that's what I bought, was a Hewlett Packard. Well, there it is. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because I'm now going in real time. Since I searched on the word printer and nothing came up, and then I immediately thought of another word that would pull it up. But I know I want the word printer in there because that's one of the things that I thought about. And so now I save that. And so then the next time, if I decide, oh, printer, I need to look something up, well, sure enough, there it is. It is a dynamic system. And all I'm doing right now, I'm not giving a huge number of explanations. I'm just showing how it works. It's kind of like a search engine. And so you can just look for items based on particular keywords, things that you might have named something. One example that I usually use is insurance. Well, actually I'm going to use that one later. So how about if I look up, I've got to think of something so that I don't have a bunch of personal stuff showing up on the screen. If I put in computer, so that's a good one. Well, that pulls up in the same way that a search engine would pull up more than one website. Then when I search on computer, it pulls up a couple of different things. It tells me that I've got a bunch of computer peripherals in a great big Christmas basket on a shelf in my file room. Also, my file number 3 is really all sorts of things that go along with my computer. And so that's a big fat file in my file drawer. And then, oh gosh, I've got something related to RoboForm information, and then something else about, computer cords. But it's easy for me to figure if what I need is something that goes along with, if my computer guy's coming over like he is on Wednesday and there's any documentation I need, it actually would be in file number 3. So these are the different locations that I have, and location just means, I think about it as a category. It's not necessarily a location. In a couple of cases it is, because with my storage unit, for example, that is a physical location. And you can see there's some office supplies, binder clips, paper clips, other sorts of things. You might think a Home Depot apron. Megan, why would you have a Home Depot apron? Are you working a second job? No, I'm not working a second job. I use it in workshops as something that I am demonstrating. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take this down for right now. But that's like a teeny weeny peek into how Paper Tiger works. And so one of you just typed in that according to that chart that I gave you earlier, you spend about $1,800 a year looking for your keys. So that's, you probably need a better system there. You don't need Paper Tiger if these things are true. First of all, if you have fewer than 30 files altogether, then you don't need Paper Tiger. I mean, 30 files, for heaven's sakes, is not even a full file drawer in most cases. So if you even had to look through less than 30 files to find a piece of paper, you'd be able to do it. However, essentially all of you have way more than 30 files. Some of you have 300, some of you have 3,000. You don't need Paper Tiger if every single file that you have is filed by last name. And so whether it's customers that you have or something like that. But what I want you to think about is the second part. You can still use Paper Tiger, and many people do because of the confidentiality. They don't want somebody to be able to, let's say, just open up their files, and if they're looking for the Meggin McIntosh file, they would go to the MC drawer and just go in there. My file, if you use Paper Tiger, could be a lot of different places, and the people who work there would be able to very quickly pull it up. So think about that. It's got to be where confidentiality makes a difference. You don't need Paper Tiger if you don't have any items like office supplies or craft supplies, storage boxes, things in your garage, all that. If you have none of that, you just got these wide open shelves, you've got so much room in your garage you don't even know what to do with it, then you don't need that. We have several people here today who are, and I know that some of them one in particular already told me, she said, part of the reason I'm taking this is because my clients need to know this. They can't even get moved because they have so much, debris everywhere. Now, if you have only, a handful of DVDs or music CDs or something like that, just teeny weeny little collections. Notebooks. So many of us love to keep things in notebooks, and that works great. And a lot of times people really like to have things labeled on the outside, and it's fine if all your notebooks are on one shelf and you can easily see them and they're very clearly labeled. But what I've found as I've worked in individuals' offices on things like this is often people have some things in notebooks, some things in a file cabinet. Pardon me, didn't want to sneeze right in your ear. And that is one thing about Reno is we do have all kinds of things that bloom here. Anyway, what they found when they started to use Paper Tiger is, oh my gosh, I have 3 notebooks on this, 4 files, and a bunch of information over here that I need to try to figure out how to get all of this together and used in some way. So what you would do is, and Paper Tiger, there is still a desktop version, and I used that for many years because that's all there was. And now there's a cloud-based version, which to me is, I like it so much because I can access it. It doesn't matter if I'm on my iPad, on my laptop, on my main computer. I can be in somebody else's office and I could log in, as long as I know my password, I can just get right in there. So you log in, and then this is what it looks like when you very first get there. And then you click on the, in my case, I named my database MEMC database. Many people in their offices, I don't have multiple offices. I don't have multiple people that need to be accessing this. It's just me. However, so many people use this that have scores of people in their offices who need to be able to access the same files. And and I know how everybody has their own little system, and sometimes they can find things, sometimes they can't, but nobody else can find anything, which of course is the whole reason, or the whole way that I even got started with this. I was still at the university, and my wonderful assistant, Karen, was out 3 months, emergency medical leave. She was there one day and gone the next. So there was no preparation that she was going to be out. We were in big trouble for a lot of reasons because she was gone, but we didn't know where things were because everything was in Karen's head, where things belonged and how things were filed, and we always counted on her. And when she came back, the very first thing I said is, you find us something. There has to be a system that we can use. And she found this, oh gosh, it's probably been 15 years ago, right around there. And I've never, ever looked back. We got the trial version, and I've been sold ever since. So when you go into my system, I have these different locations. Now, you can have 50 locations, you can have 2 locations. And for example, I encourage people to name things more by the category than necessarily the physical place that it is. So let's say you have your personnel files by the back door. Then I think you could call it personnel files rather than calling it backdoor file cabinet. I just personnel, and that way if you move to a whole different building, it's still your personnel files. In the notes, you can say, here's where it's located. It's located by the kitchen. And that can always change. You can see on mine, and let me see if I can get my little drawer here somewhere. Whoops. Oh, sorry about that. I have a little drawing tool. But you can see that you know, as I mentioned, I have something with my storage unit. I've got my safe deposit box. And the only reason that that's there is because you know, if you just decide, well, for example, let me just go into this live. Let me just show you what happens. So I'm just going to type in, I'm going to type in will. If I think, well, where's my will? Okay, well, it turns out I've got an owner's manual from R.C. Willie. That's not what I need. I've got my brother's wills. They're in file number 6. I had somebody I hosted named Williams, and there, sure enough, is at Nevada Security Bank, which is now called Umpqua. Obviously, I need to change that. Then is where my husband's and my will is. And I'm actually going to change this right now. And just in case I forget that name, because it is kind of a crazy name, I'm just going to put Nevada Security Bank right there. But part of what will happen is, let's say something awful happened as far as me just keeling over. And that's the end of it. Well, I told Larry, here's how to find things, honey. And you open up Paper Tiger and you just start typing things in. Where's our will? Where's this? Where's that? And it'll tell you. Or in case you're wondering, well, what all do we have in our safe deposit box? Well, it's listed right there. So for me, even though the software calls it location, I call it collection, or you could just think of it as type. Look at that nice kitty. Oh, and now somebody was asking me what I recommend as far as remembering passwords. And there are people who use Paper Tiger to store passwords. I'm not going to talk about that today. But the software that I use for remembering passwords is RoboForm. I'm a fanatic. I'm a big fan of RoboForm. So Susan was one person that asked that question, and a couple other people. All right. So continuing with thinking about our kitty. And if you go to page 4, you can make some notes here. One of the big ideas with Paper Tiger is that it is set up numerically. It is set up numerically. Whoops. So you can have 1,000 numbers. You can have more than that. It's however many you need. With my safe deposit box, it's just one. There are no additional numbers. But when you start to get into my reference files and my archive files and so forth, well, then the numbers go up. So let's say you've got a whole pile of folders and documents and so forth that you've decided these all need to be kept and they need to be put into Paper Tiger. And remember, if you don't know you have it or you can't find it, it is of no use to you. So the way that this works, this is my file room right next to my office with my coffee cup on top. And I have numbers on the front. A lot of people, on their file cabinets, they have letters. I just have numbers. And, I told you my computer file is gigantic. And you can see in the upper left-hand corner, that's number 1 through 3. Because 3 is big, and then also number 1 happens to be coaching clients, and that pretty well takes up the whole drawer. And then it's got 3, I can't even remember what's in 2. And so some drawers have a lot, many numbers in them, and some don't. Well, now let's zero in on this. So this is this is one of the file drawers. You open it up, reference 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, and so forth. And there it is. Now it turns out I've also got some files within there, but I don't try to go look. I don't think, now where's the MBM group coaching folder? I I don't go just open up the file drawer and start rooting around. I go to my Paper Tiger, I type in, MBM, and it tells me it's in 57. So then I can go right to 57, I open the drawer, and there it is. And I have to tell you that it makes me happy every day. Every day. Because I'm still surprised after all these years of using this. Let me just see if we had anybody asking any questions, because I don't want to. Let me get this back over here. See if anybody had his or her hands raised. Now it looks like we've still got our hands left from the other. Let me put those down. All right. Now with notebooks, oh my goodness. So if you had notebooks on your shelf, wouldn't it be nice if all your notebooks matched? And then you can just put numbers on them. Easy as can be. So whenever I'm working with somebody, we just print out big numbers, and we don't change the labeling that's already on the notebook. We just stick a number on there. These are a little bit different. I won't go through the explanation. These had to do with some classes I was taking, and I actually had the file tabs within there numbered, because each class, I couldn't remember the number of the course. I mean, I was taking, scores and scores of classes about coaching. I couldn't remember if it was 4152 or 6178. I couldn't remember those numbers, but I could remember that it was about listening. So I would just type in listening, and it would tell me it was behind tab 68, or it was behind tab thus and such. So that's how those particular numbers worked. It also works with numbering boxes. This is huge for many of you. Whether you have boxes in your attic, in your basement, in your storage unit, let's say you're moving one of your parents is no longer able to stay in his or her home, and you don't actually have time to sort everything out. They're moving maybe to an assisted living or to a nursing home. You've got to get things condensed, and then the family will do some thinking and sorting with that later. For now, you want to get it in a box, and you could put it in this system so that you knew, okay, box number 1 has pictures from early years. Box number 2 has linens, special linens that were hand embroidered. Box 3, something else. And then later you can go back through this. But think about how much easier it would make it for people who are moving. This is my storage unit. And you can see what a fun storage unit I have. I have good things. Crayons, pickup sticks. I've got good stuff. Paper plates. I mean, you just never know. Whenever anybody drives by my storage unit when I'm in there working, and they look in there and they go, wow, you sure have an organized storage unit. And I think, well, yeah, and I've driven by yours and it's not. Because people just have stuff flung in. I mean, a lot of people don't even have shelves. But even if they have shelves, they can't find things. This has saved not my life, that's a little too strong, but it has certainly saved me enormous amounts of time, and it has made such a difference with, when I was getting ready to do workshops, and I've talked about this before, when I was in full-on workshop mode and doing workshops 5 or 6 days a week, often I would drive in or fly in the evening, and I'd be off and running the next morning very early to go do another workshop, either to fly away or drive away someplace else. This way I could look up where things were. I could ask my husband or my assistant, would you please go to the storage unit and get box 51, 16, and 12. And then those could be in my garage. I could load them in the back of my car or unpack the stuff I needed and put it in my suitcase, and then away I would go. Because if you don't have something like this to be able to know what you have and be able to go back and get it, then you can't ask anybody else to help you, because you can't say, well, you know, I think it's sort of up on a top shelf. I don't really remember exactly where it is, but kind of look around there. If you've ever had one of those conversations with somebody, it doesn't go well. So you've talked to people that were more patient than I have, but that is never. That's just frustrating. It just upsets everyone. All right, let's see. Even before I talk about this anymore, any questions? And just raise your hand by pressing 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and I should be able to see that. All right, there we go. So let's see. And Sarah, go ahead. Sarah, I think that's all right. Yes. You know, and that is an excellent question that you're asking, because many people are scanning items in, and it works great for them. I've thought about that in some cases, to say, you know what, just get a scanner, pay somebody to scan all this stuff in. And so far, I've decided not to do that. But there are many people who love to have things scanned in. To me, you still have to do some coding of it anyway in order to be able to find it. And I regularly cull what I have so that I don't go past my 3 file cabinets that are here in my office. And I just get rid of a bunch of stuff, and then I've got plenty of room for whatever's new. But I think there is value in scanning. It's just not something I've gone to. Yeah. All right. Lorraine. Mm-hmm. 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 No, not as far as I know, and I've used it a long time. And so I don't, as far as I know, there's not a way to then upload a picture of it. So I think there probably would be some ways of doing something like that, but I think there might be other ways to make it easier. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, and I think I accidentally put somebody else's hand down, and I didn't mean to. So is there somebody else that had a question besides Sarah and Lorraine? I was trying to put the hands down, and I put, I think, one too many hand down. Okay, there we go. Linda. Mm-hmm. I would contact Paper Tiger themselves and ask them, because I believe, I know when I had to transfer things back in the day. And even when I got ready to go to the online version, I sent it to them and they did some kind of conversion. And that's been a while, but I would say to contact them, let them know that you've got it on your old laptop. How do you transfer it over to your new laptop? Sure. All right, so let me put that hand down. Let's go ahead and keep talking about this. And I had this wonderful question that came in, and so I'm not using anybody's last name, but Robin, this is for you. Because she gave just the most perfect example of why this works. Because you are searching on words, and any word that you put into your Paper Tiger system is searchable. And it's so you don't have to worry about what to label things or what to call things because you've got the words in there. I showed you what happened when that I could search on something either using printer, once I put the word printer in, or HP. Or I could have, have some other words in there as well. So if you're trying to decide, well now, should I label this with should I file this under C for creativity or I for inspiration, you don't have to worry about that. You just put both words in. What Robin's question had to do is you can tell she's a highly creative person, and she leads choirs, she writes music, she creates all sorts of things. She said her church choir, those people are alphabetical, that's no problem. But everything else, she says, what do I call it? For example, she said, I create my own materials as well as using loads of other books and activities and games, plus sheet music. How do I file and name all of them so I can find them? I teach writing and I create my own materials. How do I file? What do I name? I must need a lot of subdivisions. Actually, no. And what I'm going to do is, let me go back into my Paper Tiger. We're just going to pretend here. We're going to set up, we're going to go to, so I'm going to go to locations. I'm going to pretend we're doing this in reference. And so I'm just, whoops, let me just get out of that. I'm going to go into, let's see, I'll go into ideas, which I don't think has much of anything in it because I don't really use that one. All right, so I'm going to go to new, and I'm going to type in, let's see, I'm going to type in music and church choir. Word ideas. Fall events. And let's say there's a book you know about that has some great ideas, and it's by Bob Smithers. And you decide you're going to drop that in there as well. So all you're doing is you go ahead and you can call it what you want. You can always change it. You put in some keywords, and then it would allow you to search on any of those. Then if you've got another file and it's with some poetry that you're writing, you put it in there. You can have a lot of files named poetry. You can have the keyword poetry in a lot of different files. And even I have some files that have nothing more in them than a scrap of paper, because I don't even know what I'm going to do with it yet, but it's a really good idea. I might use it. I get it in Paper Tiger so that when I get ready and I think, whatever happened to that really good metaphor where I was using jelly beans? Well, and all I have to do is type in jelly beans or metaphor, and it's going to tell me where that is. And I believe we could actually even do that one, and it would pull something up. The flinging ourselves back and forth about what to call things is one of the main reasons that people don't get things filed, because they can't figure out what they're going to call it. Let me show you an example of this. So let's think about insurance, where people have got all this documentation related to their car insurance. Do they call it insurance, comma, car, and file it under I? Do they call it car insurance, auto insurance? Geico, is it filed under the name of your car? Is it filed under the person who's your broker? You don't have to worry about that. You just go into, again, we're going back to Paper Tiger, just moving these things so you can see them. And let's say I type in the word insurance, and let's see what we get. So I've got some things, some family things. I've got some workers' comp sorts of information. And, oh, there's my Saturn Outlook right there with information. So obviously I've had my car for a while. It's a great car, 40,000 miles. I bought it in the end of 2006, so just FYI, it's been a great car. I've got people standing in line to buy it. And I said, well, so far I'm not selling it. But anyway, I've got these different files about insurance. I didn't have to worry about whether I should file it under the name of my car. Should I put the smog check in a separate kind of thing? What about that? No, it's all in there. And when I search on it, everywhere that word appears, it highlights it. So that's an example of how this reduces any of the drag that you have about actually getting things filed. What I want to do is, and as I've used this idea several times, that you're searching on your files in the same way that you use a search engine because of the numbers and so forth. Now, what I want you to do is go ahead and I'm going to give you some tips about filing, and this will include certainly if you're doing Paper Tiger filing, but other things it would work even if you weren't using Paper Tiger. But frankly, I don't know why you wouldn't use it. All right. First of all, number one, you have got to get some good hanging file folders. Not crappy ones. This is not the time to go cheap, because if you buy good hanging file folders, they can last, I don't know, as long as you're going to be at your job. Let's just say that. So easily, if you buy good file folders, they'll last 20 or 30 years. If you buy crummy ones, then the thing comes off, the tab won't work, it falls down in the file cabinet, you're forever wrestling with it. Don't do that. Get good hanging file folders. Smeed, Pendaflex. Some of the Office Depot ones are okay. Others are, the bargain ones are the bargain ones. So just figure this is not a time necessarily to be stepping over $1 to save a dime. Is just get something really good. Then the other idea I want you to write down here next to number 1 on page 5 is you want to also get what are called box bottom. And I wish I could find a graphic of that. I should have just taken a picture. Yeah, duh. I should have just taken a digital image from my file cabinet. The box bottom ones, you can get 1-inch, 2-inch, and 3-inch. And it's a hanging file folder that has a piece of cardboard that goes in the bottom, and you use it for thicker files. Because you know how with a regular hanging file folder, once it gets past about 1/2 inch thick, it starts just sticking up, and then you can't even see the labels or the numbers or anything else. So get yourself some good materials to start with. Number 2 is it's so much easier if you go ahead and prepare all your tabs that you need. So this is what I always make sure that I do for my folks that I'm working with is we get all their tabs printed out ahead of time. So let's just say these are the files that they currently have, and with those tabs, and you can see it's messy and it's hard to read and all that sort of thing. And what you want to do is have nice tabs that go with that, and you can print them right from Paper Tiger. So that's why when you saw those ones that said reference, and then I've got ones in my garage that say archive, other sorts of things. I just printed them right from Paper Tiger. I said, you know, this is the range I want, this is the word I want, and it just prints them right out. So see, these are ones that somebody's typed in all those numbers and so forth, and it just looks so much better than having things handwritten. And David Allen talks about this even with labeling other sorts of things. He says, get a labeler. And he's right. It just makes such a difference to have things labeled neatly, even if you have really neat handwriting. Now, the other piece related to number 2, besides getting these prepared ahead of time, is go ahead and you want to put them in an alternating fashion rather than, so when you looked at these are just one right behind the other. It's too hard to see. These are one right behind the other. Don't do that. Go ahead and not like this either. That's the other thing a lot of people do is they put them all the way across. Believe it or not, there are people who do research on this, and it takes longer to look all the way across than it does to just go back and forth. So here's how I want you to consider doing them. Just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then you can see 104, 105, 106, 107. You just look right, it's right down the line. Your eyes barely have to move. It's easy. It's easy. Now the other thing that, and you may or may not be able to tell this here, but the tabs are actually on the front. They're on the front rather than on the back. This is where I wish I had a webcam that went on top of my head, like a miner's hat, and then I could just walk right over to my file room and I could say, see how this is? What most people do when they're using hanging files is they snap the plastic part toward the back of the folder, and it's easier to do it in the front because then when you're getting ready to take a file, you would grab, for example, let's say you need to be in 106. You would grab that tab 106, you'd pull it forward, you could see what's in the file, you can grab it and take it out, but you always leave the hanging folder where it is. So that is that. So again, you can just see these are my numbers, just back and forth, easy as can be. Let me check and see if we have any people with any questions. Whoops. Before we go on. And remember, you just raise your hand, press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll be able to see if you have any questions. And I don't see any questions right now. Okay. So step number 3 is you go ahead and get your file folders in the drawer. They don't even have things in them yet. It's just you getting them in there ready. All of this makes it so much faster. So you've been to the store now if you needed to. You got the supplies that you needed, and you just start putting them right in the drawers. The reason I said toward the front is you don't have to take everything out of the drawer to start to do this. When I first switched to Paper Tiger, because people say, well, how long does this take? You know what? Once we did it at the office, then I decided I needed to have it at home, so then I bought a version for home as well, and I do, maybe 5 minutes a day or 2 or 3 files a day, and I just plugged along little by little. I didn't take anything out of the file cabinet. I just worked right through with what was there. There's no need to make this a bigger deal than it needs to be. All right, I'm going to go to Cynthia with a question. Okay, yes, excellent question. I don't know if you all remember, and it may still even be in there, the comic Kathy. And one of my favorite of Kathy Sunday cartoons was she had gone to an office supply store and she bought colored boxes and colored hangers and colored folders and just all these colored items. she got home and was, of course, just exhausted, and she said, the fun of organizing ends when there's nothing else color-coded to buy. With the colors that I have, I'm not using them to signify anything. I just think they're pretty. And so I like having, the yellow and green and red and orange and blue. And so I just buy those instead of the plain green ones. But it does not signify anything. So that's a really good question. Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that. Okay. So remember, anytime you have a question, just raise your hand by pressing, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So step number 4 is where you get whatever the file is that you're getting ready to work on. And you take it out of the file cabinet, you take it off the floor, out of the box, wherever you have these particular items. You get rid of everything in there that you possibly can. There is no sense to be transferring clutter, which is exactly what some people do, is they just think, well, forget it. No, just take your time. If you've had a system that hasn't worked great for a while, it's not going to hurt you to have it for a few more weeks. You're better off going through, updating 3 or 4 or 5 files a day. That's all you can get to. That's fine. But you end up getting rid of easy half of what you have. For some of you, what starts out as a 4-drawer file cabinet or 5 separate boxes of files ends up being culled down to 1, maybe 2 drawers or a couple of boxes. And that would be very, very typical. So this is where you use those 13 questions that I gave you on, I believe it was page 3 of your materials. This is, it's not a race. The idea is not to get upset or worked up about this. You don't have to do this in a day. It's part of what happens is there are a lot of decisions to be made anytime you're decluttering, which is part of what's happening here. And we can all get exhausted with that. So in the 365 Decluttering Days Facebook page, we talk about things like that. Sometimes people will go hog wild for half a day or a whole day and work on things. A lot of times people like to just do it a little bit at a time. So you don't have to worry about this. Nobody's timing you. And in some cases, it's better to do it by yourself. In other cases, of course, it's better to do it with somebody else. Let's go ahead and let me show another example of how this works. Because it really is, so we're going to go to locations, and let's go to I'll go to archive, and I think that'll work. I think that works fine. And so let's say that I want to put in a new file. Well, it turns out that the first open number that I have is 19. This is another piece that I haven't even said anything about, which is that you don't, anytime you get rid of something, let's say, you're culling this a month from now and you get rid of file 27 and file 63 and so forth, then the next time you type in new, it tells you where the first open slot is. So you don't just keep adding numbers at the end unless you need them. You go in and in essence, it's like backfilling. And so let's say we're going to do a new one, and we're going to do it about a particular course that somebody is teaching. And so this will be Biology 368. And maybe that's called Microbiology and You. Pardon me. Microbiology and You. And you have, let's see, syllabus that you're going to put in there. This is a course that you taught last summer. You're going to put the syllabus in there. You had student examples. You have a manual for, I don't know, I'll call it Blackboard. I think they've even changed the name. A manual for Blackboard that you were given, and also your GA last summer was named Marletta Brown. And you just think, you know what, I might think of her, and I've got some notes in there about her because someday I want to be able to recommend her for something else, and you just put that in there. And then you just click add that to archive 9, and sure enough, there it is. Nice as could be. And you can always go back and change it. You can get rid of it. You can add more keywords. It's just not stressful, folks. I promise you. There's nothing I do for 15 years if there's not value. And if you've taken any of my planner classes, you know how I am. When I get tired of a planner, even if it's still working, I switch to something else. So it's not that I'm, beyond loyal on these kinds of things. I've got to have something that works. All right. So with step 6, and I don't know why I still had a 5 there, I guess this is still 5. Sorry. I'm changing my numbers. Now we're going to 6. So 6 is when you are, getting in those words and so forth, just like what I showed you, and then you take whatever the file is, because you already had the folder prepared that said, archive theme. You just drop it in, and look how happy you are, or whatever the folder is. So step 7 that you would use is you do it again. And you just do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. And you're happy every time. 15 years, still happy. Still happy when I file, and especially happy when I find. And I would say I'm probably in my files at least 6 days a week. Sometimes 7, sometimes multiple times in a day. It just depends. But I don't feel the stress that I used to. And there's also not the procrastination that I used to have, which is when I would think, oh my gosh, I can't file now. Because it involved too many decisions. What am I going to call it? Do I already have a file on this? It just felt stressful and heavy, and now it doesn't. You can decide whether you want to work on this for a certain number of minutes every day, if you want to do a few files every day. The idea is you just start working away on it, just a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. And you don't wear yourself out. You don't need to wear yourself out. Sometimes people like to do just a few inches worth of their file folders every day. If you, let's say today you decide, this is a notebook day. I'm going to get this many notebooks done. And you just set that as a little goal, and you do it, and it feels good. If you've got boxes of things or certain drawers, you decide today I'm going to work on this drawer. And then another day I'll work on another drawer. The thing is, in so many cases, we already had some kind of system that was in there, even though it didn't work great. So you can see this person's got things, they've got household equipment, income tax, medical. You're not undoing any of what you have. You are just adding a layer on there that's going to help you be way more efficient and way more calm about this. Keeping up with it is also something that you're just constantly keeping up with it. If you go into your files one day and you think, this drawer is getting kind of tight. I wonder if there's anything in here I could get rid of. And that's usually what I do. I start thinking, this drawer is getting a little snug. Let's see if there are some files I could get rid of. And in some cases there aren't. I have decided I want to keep everything. But in other cases, I think, no, looks like, you know what, this one, I bet I can just recycle all the paper that's in here. Or this needs to go right into the shredder. And out it comes. I go right to Paper Tiger. It's just constant maintenance, but low-key maintenance, low stress. If you can have a helper, that's great. And that's tip number 9. When I was doing this at home, I did it completely by myself. There wasn't anybody else here to help me. But at the office or when I go in and help other people, it's nice because one person can be at the keyboard typing things in, the other person's at the file cabinet, and they're saying, well, call it this, do that. And it is nice. Or maybe you've got somebody who's hauling things out to the recycling bin as they're helping you purge. It's just nice to have 2 sets of hands. So what about if you have folders or notebooks that already have labels on them? You don't have to take those off. You just leave them on there. You can take them off, but for some of you, you think, wow, I've already got a label on there. All you're doing is you're putting the number right next to it. So you can see this happens to be a picture of a file that had little folders in it from a whole bunch of people that I had hosted for teleseminars. Well, the reason I had those labeled is because when it's leading up to the time that I have somebody as a guest, they're in my action folder, which I just reached over and opened up that drawer as if you could see it. So if Patricia Hutchings is coming up, she's over in this other folder. She would actually be in Project 1. That's where she would be. Once the class is over, however, then I take that person's folder and I put it in the reference file where I've got all kinds of things from previous participants. And I don't take the label off the folder. I just leave it on there and drop it in. But I know it's in, and actually it's not 9, it's in 11. You can't see some of the numbers here the way I have them. All right, so that's that. Anything that's physical, you can number. Anything. CDs, DVDs, storage unit boxes, boxes in your garage. Back in the day, I used to have millions of shoes. It's kind of an overstatement. I had many, many, many shoes. Kind of a shoe aficionado. Now, not so much. I don't need numbers on my shoes, but if I had known about Paper Tiger back then, I could have had my shoes labeled that way, and I would have labeled them by color and all that sort of thing so that I could find them. I used to be quite stylish. Not so much now. I did put on a clean top for you all though today, since I knew I was going to be on the webcam. And I'll switch that back on again so you can appreciate my nice orange top. So this is this is in my garage, and these are just my archive files. So the things that I need to keep, but I don't need to keep them in my office, they can go out there. And I know exactly where things are. I can just go find them. It's not as easy to get to them because my husband's truck is parked right next to those, but I can get in there. I mean, the idea is they're archived. They're not my go-to files every single day. Those are the ones that I've got to have handy right here in my office. But the ones that are archived, they stay out there. One of the things that I love is once a year, usually January 1st, I go out there and I get out a whole bunch of files that I have indicated that as of January 1st of thus and such a date, I can get rid of those. Now, if you have a lot of hobby material, let's say you have a ton of fabric, and you need to label that. I've heard so many people who are quilters or they've bought lots and lots of fabric and then they can't even remember, well, now, do I have any blue wool? Do I have any of this? You can Paper Tiger that. If you have many, many envelopes, when I was a teacher, a classroom teacher, I would create all these nifty bulletin boards and I put all the letters and all the pictures and everything like that into envelopes so that I'd have them the next year if I'd only known about Paper Tiger then, I could have labeled everything so that I could have found it so much more easily. So the place where you can go to learn more, and I know many of you have already done that, is just trypapertiger.com. Trypapertiger.com. They have a free trial, or it's not even just a free trial. I think for up to 25 or 30 files, you never pay. And it's very, very inexpensive, even after that. I forget my version. It's very inexpensive, I forget, because it's one of those that I wouldn't be without it. Let's go to our fifth poll. How many file cabinets do you access regularly? 1, and if it's 1, press 1. If it's 2, press 2. If it's 3, press 3 on your keypad. If it's 4, press 4. If it's 5 or more, press 5. And let's see what we have. Okay. Check those numbers. All right. So it looks like the majority of the people, it's 1. And then everybody else is pretty well divided across either 2, 3, 4, or 5 or more. Okay. All right. So I think I showed you some of these kinds of things already. I just had a few different graphics. And the last thing, the tip number 12 on this is really to trust the system. There are people who try to do funny things. It's like they try to game it or something, and there's just no need to do that. The system works. One of the questions that people often ask me is, oh my gosh, what happens if, I don't know, the cloud goes down, or the internet, if I can't access the internet, then am I not able to find anything? From as long as I've used it, one of the things I've always done is I print an item list report. At this point, because I'm not changing Paper Tiger all that much, I only reprint it once a month. When I was very first updating it quite a bit every week, I would print it every week. When I'm working in somebody's office and we are doing this, and which, by the way, when I work in people's offices, I guarantee my work, and the only way I will guarantee my work is if they use Paper Tiger. I can't guarantee my work otherwise. If we use any other system, then I don't know whether we're going to find and file what we needed to. So sometimes people will say, well, I don't want to use that. And I'll say, well, then I can't come work with you. And I'll say, well, I can pay you. I know you can, but I'm not coming because I can't guarantee my work. So when I'm working in an individual's office and we're doing a lot of filing in a day, we just print an item list report every day. And it just makes everybody feel calm. And then you can use it and you can look at it. Now, the place that I keep mine is I use a Swift file, which is a type of tickler system, 1 through 31 and January through December system. It's another one of the systems I could not live without. I just put it behind tab 31. So once a month, I know I'm going to print a new one, and if I ever need it, for example, if I'm going over to my storage unit, maybe to do some work and I'm going to be culling and changing and so forth, I'll just take the printed list with me rather than my laptop or something, and I'll just write right on there and then come home and make a few changes. But I always know exactly where it is, and I recommend that people do the same thing. So this is just that's my item list report, and it's a lot of pages because I've got a lot of files. One of my favorite, and I paid to be able to use this cartoon, so I'm not breaking copyright. And so it's whenever something goes wrong, I just push this little button and restart. I wish my whole life was like that. And so if you need to get your files squared away, then this is the thing. Now, try Paper Tiger, and I've made this very plain. That's my affiliate link, which means that Paper Tiger sends me money if you sign up through me. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this because I hate to see people not organizing things in a better and easier way. And every single dollar I ever get from Paper Tiger or the handful of other companies that I recommend like this, I give it to Kiva and DonorsChoose.org. So you're not going to pay any more if you end up buying this and you buy it through trypapertiger.com. You'll pay exactly the same. It just means I get to donate money to Kiva and Donors Choose. You get the same good thing, and you pay exactly the same price. So I just want to make sure you know I'm good. I'm good on money, and I'm happy to give lots of money away, and I'm really happy to give this money away as well. So I thank you for that. So let's find out what other questions people have, and I will find out what your question is and go ahead and answer that. We've got about 5 minutes. So let's see what the questions are. All right. Here comes a question. Sarah. My understanding, Sarah, is there isn't one. There are people who have done what seems to me a convoluted, as inexpensive as this is. I've watched some people do these real convoluted kinds of things with Excel. And I'm not against Excel. Excel's fine. But they've tried to get Excel to do this, and they've spent, I don't know, hours and hours and hours trying to make it work, and it still doesn't work exactly, but it sort of mimics it. And I thought, for $20 a year, or whatever it is, I would just go. So I don't know of any competing product. If there is one, I would want to know about it just because I'm interested in things like that, but I'm not positive there is one. It's kind of different from some of the other things that I recommend. For example, the project management software I recommend, there are a ton of competing projects or options for that. This one, I don't think there is. Yeah, good question. So let's see. Any other questions that anybody has? All right. Well, what I'm going to actually do is I would love to hear, say, from 3 people as far as what you intend to do with any of the information that you got today. So just raise your hand. I'd love 3 people. What do you intend to do with the information that you got today, either about tossing, culling what you have, filing, figuring out where your time goes, all these things? And going to Beverly. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Good. Very good. Who else? All right. Well, I'm not seeing anybody else with a hand up, so I will go ahead and call today's class to a close. If you want to be on 365 decluttering days, it's just a Facebook page. You're welcome to come there. If you have other questions that did not get answered today, please let me know about that, and I will try to get you some answers. So this is Meggin McIntosh, and I am signing off. Appreciate everybody being here, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.